G'day everyone, my name is Ryonix and welcome to a review of 3 scary games. Now, these are the 3 scariest games that I played in 2019. They absolutely terrified me. So we're going to take a deeper look at them, see how they managed to scare me, and what they could do a little bit better, what they could have done a little bit worse. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, into the review. First game on the list is Tenome. Now, Tenome is an indie horror game made by Nya, whose real name is actually Ryan, which he stole from me. But it was made for a 48-hour asylum game jam and is inspired by the real-life Japanese yokai by the name of Tenome. He's a guy who sees out of eyes in his hands, and he's a creepy son of a bitch. But you know, you get to like him after a while. Anyway, the basics of Tenome. It doesn't have a whole lot of story. It gives you a little bit of context and kind of alludes to a story, but there's nothing really there. It's mostly just, there's a monster roaming around a location, you have to find an item and get out of there and not get eaten by the monster. There is only one monster roaming the halls, which is the Tenome, and he is actually a pretty spooky individual, and the playtime is roughly 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how many times you want to go over, because you will die. And it really depends on how many times you intend to die before you're done. Tenome, by its own nature, is very low brightness, very sort of high contrast sort of thing. You don't see a whole lot of where you're going around. Your field of vision is very low. So because the monster is a sort of similar color to the grayish, blackish, shadowy area of the setting, the monster itself is very hard to see. The only parts of it that you can see are the glowing eyes on its hands, which it tends to cover up by slamming against the side of his head in a screaming manner as if it is going insane, which is actually pretty creepy. It's covering up these glowing sides usually. These usually only appear when the monster is chasing you, as it will extend its glowing areas out and run full pace at you, which is pretty fucking terrifying, but you'll always notice when it's there because this sound will play. And generally there are a few other things, like you can hear the Tenome screaming, or you can hear the sounds of its footsteps. The monster doesn't have a strict path where it goes around the area. It has a strict set of amount of spawns which it will appear in when you are nearby. For example, these places are randomized, but they are usually either inside the different rooms around the school, or up and down the stairway. It will usually walk up or walk down the stairs, and then will come and chase you and then eat your face off. Now, while sometimes this can be a bit less scary, this creates what I like to call natural jump scares. Sort of things where you're walking along, you won't notice the monster is there, suddenly it'll make a loud noise, or you'll see it suddenly there, and have that moment of, oh holy crap, there's suddenly a large amount of fecal matter in my pants. But I mean, who would get caught by the monster? Holy shit! I think that's just stupid. When the monster sees you, it will play this loud scream, some really banging music will start playing, and you'll know that the monster is after you. It usually gives you a fairly good warning of when the monster is coming after you and giving you decently enough time to get scared before you are killed. What Tenome does well, it has fantastic atmosphere, like literally phenomenal music, great visuals, the setting is really good. The school at night has a very unnatural feel to it. I talked about it in my Let's Play, but it's sort of like, because generally schools are these places where you'll always see other people around, having it in a place where it's all abandoned, where there's no one there and it's all dark, it does put you on edge a bit. The monster is actually very scary and well designed. The animations are pretty solid, it has a pretty spooky way of walking. The instructions are a bit on the nose, but they aren't intrusive and they're fairly easy to follow. So considering how over the top and how stupid some games' instructions can get, I'm giving this one a pass. What the game could improve upon. The game is hard as all hell. I have tried multiple times to beat it and I have not been able to. You're meant to find a key so you can exit the main door of the school, but I have not been able to find it. I have looked the school top to bottom, checked every single room, and I cannot find it. I'm thinking I might actually have to live stream it one day, because that's how long it's gonna take me to freaking find the exit. The game is a little unpolished as well. When you first go to the school doors and are told to find an exit, Tenome will appear to sort of give him his little intro. He will walk across the screen. You can actually run straight up to him. He won't attack you. You can pass through his animation and then he'll despawn in a place where you can see him. It's just a little bit of unpolishing that doesn't work too well. I didn't notice this happen too often. I only noticed it once when I was getting some extra footage for this review, but you can actually, it's fairly easy to notice that Tenome does spawn from place to place. I just finished running away from him, left him about 2 rooms behind me, and then suddenly he walked out of a room in front of me, which sort of at first made me think that there were multiple of the monster roaming around, but no, he just teleported to a room in front. These are all forgivable since this game was made in 40 48 hours, but if you're wanting to improve upon it and make a remastered version, these are the improvements I recommend. Final verdicts. I do have a bit of a soft spot for this game. I do love it. It has some minor flaws, but it is the best game jam game that I have played, and one of the few games that actually still scares me when I play it to this day. Next game is I See You, made by Cat Overlord. Basics of I See You is that it's a very linear horror game. It basically sends you into a strict set of rooms. You aren't able to go anywhere where the developer wouldn't intend for you to go. It's not like you have a set area, goal is here, monster is here, and you've got to roam around it. It's literally, you go into this room, there's a scare, you go into the next room. And the game time is roughly 15 to 20 minutes. How the game scares you. I See You is easily the scariest game I played in 2019. I was terrified almost the entire time. As I said before, it takes you through a series of rooms that has a set amount of scares in them, but it's used so well that literally pretty much every scare was just on point, was nailing it every time. I was so terrified. Hi! The main set of scares are a few jump scares, but that's not all there is to it. It's mainly focused on building tension and creeping you out so that when the jump scare happens, it's not because that there's something loud and something chasing you. It's because you've had like 5 minutes of walking around a room going, there's something here and it's going to kill me, and suddenly something is here and it is killing you and you're shitting your pants. It's something the game does incredibly well, is building up tension, and it's something I wish horror games did more. It is literally what brings out that feeling of terror. What the game does well, the visuals are great. It has a pixelated design that actually makes the environment feel very foreign and a little hostile, but maybe that's just me. It has a very low field of view, so when you're walking down a hallway or even in just a really large room, there's like this great looming shadow that sort of blocks off what you can see. So your mind is just going into overdrive about what horrifying monster could possibly be there. And then when you walk there and there isn't anything and you hear sounds coming from behind you, then you really get scared. And that's another thing the game does very well. It messes with sounds a lot. Two of the things I noticed that really got me is when I was walking into a room, it made the sound that the game makes whenever you go into a new room, and it sort of just felt like this moment of, oh shit, something's just walked into the room with me. When you're just like walking through a room, suddenly it makes the sound of footsteps appear to be coming from behind you, and that just, God, that is scary. It also messes with the instructions as well, sort of breaks the mold on that. It starts off with the typical like pop-up instructions like, you know, hi, thanks for playing this game, was to move, this to look around, and then suddenly it starts sort of distorting them. Like it'll be, you can press shift to run, but you can never get away. The first instruction is like, the doors that are open have been marked for you, or it's like, I've marked all the doors, you go where I want you to go, and it's really good. Another thing the game does really well is that it will just sometimes pop a random face or a monster to creep you out, and then it will suddenly disappear or run off the screen, and it really keeps you on edge. And now the biggest thing that this game did well, the thing I wish every horror game would do, get playtesters on your game. If you want your game to be good, have playtesters testing it at multiple stages of production, constantly telling you whether it's good, what can be improved, whether this was scary or not. Like, I can speak from personal experience that having playtesters on your project is so beneficial, especially if they are playtesters who know what they are doing. It's like, even if it's only 2 or 3 to tell you if what you've made is good or not, just get some. Even if it's friends, even if it's family, even if it's your girlfriend or your mum or your dog, I don't care, just get some. Now, what the game could improve upon. The ending does get a little bit ridiculous, and in the last few rooms it does stop being a bit scary. It just sort of goes for the fact of, heavy sounds, lots of colors, monsters roaming around everywhere, be scared. And like some of the sounds are also like the default screaming sounds, which are a little bit ridiculous. I'm pretty sure the Wilhelm scream is in there somewhere. The ending will quit the game and open a large number of tabs, which do show some creepy imagery, but if you have bad internet, the only scare will be the amount of data that you're using, and the thought of having to close so many tabs when you're done. The setting of I See You is an abandoned hospital, which is a great setting in and of itself, but they never utilized it as well as they could have. Like, literally, the game could have been set in a warehouse, or a library, or a freaking daycare center, and it wouldn't have changed the game. I was playing the game a little bit earlier just to, get a feel for it again, and suddenly, like, this thing popped up. I wasn't able to record it, but there's these little things saying, these little messages saying, do you feel safe? You shouldn't. I'll be watching forever. This is like 15 minutes after I finished playing the game. That is awesome. Final verdict on the game. As I said earlier, this is the scariest game that I played in 2019 and one of the scariest games that I have ever played. It has a few minor flaws, but honestly, I had to really dig to find them. It's just a great indie game. Developers should just, if you're planning on making a horror game, or horror anything really, take some notes from this about tension building, about building up scares, because it does that so phenomenally. Our third and final game is Black Rose, made by Sir Bedlam Productions. At the basics of Black Rose, it has a little bit of story, similar to Tenome. It's mainly about monster avoidance and finding a certain item and getting to another room. It has one monster that doesn't have a strict path, it just sort of teleports around. Unlike Tenome, it's a lot less subtle about it. And the playtime is roughly 10 to 15 minutes. What the game does well. Black Rose overall isn't an amazing game. The reason it's here is that it does one or two things incredibly well. First one is the build-up. It is fantastic. The atmosphere of the abandoned building is great. Then like sort of getting the baby monitor and hearing the voices of the monster telling you to come see it downstairs, and then entering these confusing catacombs where you get lost, where you have to constantly backtrack, go back and forth until you finally find this coffin. It's just such a good build-up. When the monster appears, it is scary. It's sort of like that panic horror thing, but it's not the best moment of the game, I think. The best moment of the game is when you finally manage to lock the monster in her coffin, and then suddenly there's this little pause and you think, oh great, it's done, I can get out. And then suddenly she starts slamming on the coffin. You can hear her screaming her lungs out, and for once, it's actually a really good screaming effect. I was so terrified. I just had this thought of, oh shit, I've pissed her off, and I had to run out the room. It was so good. Oh, that moment, it was perfect, really. Unfortunately, those are really the only good things. Well, apart from the music, that's pretty good. Anyway, what the game could improve. The monster just isn't really that scary. The design is okay, but she just sort of teleports around and jump scares you once or twice. The only time she really, got me was when she would suddenly teleport in front of me and you have that initial jump and you realize that she can stand right next to you and not kill you, so you just go up to her and run away. Even then, if you leave it for a little bit of time, if you stop making progress for I think it's about 2 or 3 minutes, she'll just go away until you get to the next stage, which it just slows the game down and really gives you the time to calm and relax yourself, which you don't want in a horror game, unless you're playing to get something bigger at the end, which the game wasn't. What you actually need to do to progress in the game as well is very confusing and not clued in too well. Basically, I won't spoil too much of it. This is the first 5-10 minutes of the game. Alright, you go into a room, okay? Go into a room, you find a baby monitor. Monster tells you to come downstairs. You go downstairs, monster starts chasing you. You find a key. You go into a room, you trigger the monster. You wait for her to despawn. You find another key. With the key that you just found, you go into another room. You trigger the monster. You wait for the monster to go away. You find another. It's not good game design, is what I'm saying. The setting, like I See You, is pretty underused as well. The game is set in an abandoned funeral home, which is a pretty unique setting and actually has a lot of potential, but it only has one coffin and one body. Imagine if coffins were strewn all about the place and that was where the monster teleported to. It's like suddenly you'd walk into a room and suddenly coffin opens up, the lady appears out of it, and you've got to bolt out of that room quickly before she gets to you. That'd be pretty good. And the game is just exceedingly dark. I literally tried to play it this morning and I couldn't because the sun shining down meant I couldn't see anything from my game. It was fine with the other two, but I literally had to close my curtains and turn off all the lights just to play, which I guess is a nice way to ensure that people are playing your game in complete darkness, but still, just turn your brightness up. Final verdict of Black Rose. It is by no means a bad game, but there is a lot to work on. However, it was still really scary, one of the scariest games I played, and it really does deserve some praise. And now we come to the best section of the video, lessons for game developers. If you're an aspiring horror developer, these are some of the lessons to take away from these games. Number 1, sound is everything. The one thing all of these games had in common was great audio design. They all had a really amazing soundtrack, they all made full use of the sound design, and it really just dictated how scary or how good the atmosphere was. So if you want to make a good horror game, first step every time is good audio design. Lesson number 2, jump scares are okay when used well, actually. The best scares in all of these games were jump scares, but the thing is, they weren't just walking through a corridor and suddenly monster pops out. Ah, big noise, scary. No, they had the build-up. You walked into a room, you were scared that there was something there, you were worried, you were terrified, and as you slowly moved around, you got hints that there was something in the room with you. And then, just as you're walking through, suddenly, BAM! Monster right there, all of your primal fears are activated, and suddenly your digestive tract has just become 10 times faster. Third and final lesson, sometimes a game is better without a story. Pretty much none of these games had a story there, and what was there was just sorta nothing. The game pretty much just focused on the scares itself and on the monster, and that just made it a whole lot better. You weren't focused on this character's motivations or like what the history of this building was. You were just focused on, oh crap, there is something chasing me, I need to get out of here, and that was just really good. But anyway, that is all I have to say about these games. I've been rambling on for far too long, and if you're still listening, then my god, you are a saint. So thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. If you enjoyed it, then let me know down in the comments below. And I'll be sure to get to it as soon as I can. Let me know what other games you'd like me to play or review. Goodbye! Morgan, what do your elf ears hear? Let's go. Oh, too slick for this, bitch! Oh, too slick for you! Oh my goodness, I like this. This is cool. It's not really scary, but like, it's cool.